way it usually goes is marketing does its part, you want a product really bad, you make that impulsive buy, and then you spend the first week or so either living that promise or realizing there were better options out there. And then there are cases that are different. Products that are actually hard to compare with the rest. And that is where the honeymoon phase gets interesting. I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocketnow, and I've just spent a week with the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus. Yes, I know that there are certain reviews already out there. We decided to take a little more time. There are certain flagship features like DeX that barely got launched about a day ago, so we need a little more time to objectively test. So far, this phone does not disappoint. I've always said that if I'm going to be using a large phone, there has to be a purpose for it, and no other device does that job better than this one. The unboxing experience is fairly Samsung, up until you dive into the things that changed. Typical black box with an S Pen drawn at the front, you open it up and you get the phone in the center taking up the entire footprint. At the top there's a smaller box with literature and a SIM ejector tool. Below is just the cover, and we have Samsung's new USB-C 25-watt charger, a USB-C to USB-C cable, and, well, the 8kg headphones that, yeah, they are USB-C, and you bet, I did try to see if they work on my MacBook Pro, and they sort of do, meaning it takes forever for them to be detected before you can send audio to them. Oh well, let's just move on and remove the plastic. And would you look at that, this is interesting. There is a screen protector pre-installed. I am removing that as well. You can choose to keep it, you know I'm not a fan. Setting it up for the first time also brought some interesting but minor changes. The usual boot up screen emerges, and then it lets you pick your Wi-Fi connection. But then things start getting logical, where you're offered to restore from your old phone using Smart Switch right from the beginning. In the past, you would have to go through the process of restoring Google first, and then all your work would be lost in this step. This time, you get the Smart Switch at the beginning, and it does restore in the background as you set up the rest. Set up your Google account, set up your biometrics with the on-display ultrasonic fingerprint scanner. Then you're greeted by the usual additional setups like Samsung account, all before landing in your home screen. Now, Smart Switch did take a bit to finish, and it was all because it was trying to restore my entire library from the Galaxy S10 Plus, so word of advice, if you do want it to go quick, remove the microSD card on the host device. My overall first impressions is this is a Note. In absolutely every way, this phone is large. And sure, it looks really futuristic because the display barely has bezels, but that also means that there is more display for you to manipulate with your hand. That's good for some people, not necessarily good for others. I found myself rather mixed. There are interesting elements of the design, like the curvier sides, which only expose the glass more, so keep that in mind if you ever drop this phone. I highly recommend you get a case. Right now I'm rocking the hybrid transparent one from Spigen that I'll link to below. And then the second interesting element is the sort of flat top and bottom, which is actually more a visual trick. If you try to stand the phone, it just won't. Still, all these visual elements match with the triple camera design, and yeah, it does remind me of another phone, even up to the placement of the Infinity O, so let me know if you'd be interested in seeing a comparison between the two. And then there's this Aurora Glow color. I seriously love it. Yes, I have to agree with Michael Fisher, it looks like a compact disc. It's so elegant and it's so unique, but man, it's also very easy to smudge with fingerprints. It is a breath of fresh air from reviewing dark phones in the past, but only when it's clean. Tucked inside, we're actually reviewing the most powerful variant, though without 5G, meaning a Qualcomm Snapdragon 855, 12GB of RAM, 256GB of expandable storage, and a 4300 mAh battery. Thing is, well, at first I thought it was overkill, but it's actually not. More than half the RAM is taken by the operating system and the typical apps you use. I'm fine with the storage, I doubt I'll ever need the expandability. And as for the battery life, I'll say that I'm okay with it so far. I can't say that it's better than the Note 9 or worse, you'll end the day just fine, but I need to do a little more testing. But then when it comes to the software, we've got One UI 1.5 on top of Android 9 Pie. I know, we're a little behind here, but, well, there are some advantages to the extra RAM because this phone feels fast. And I mean very fast. Like, the way it handles the user interface feels a lot better than the Galaxy S10 Plus. There are animations on the menus, but far more fluid than in previous iterations or devices. Expect a ton of tutorials once you set this phone up for the first time, but even those don't slow down the phone. I actually did the most grueling test, which is leaving the Bixby home menu active, and even that doesn't bog down the phone. Let's just hope it remains that way. And speaking of Bixby, I fully disabled the button. When you go into the settings, you can define if a long press of the button switches the phone off or on, or launches Bixby. So you know what route I went. I'm still not used to having the power button at the left. I'll let you know if it grows on me. And the other thing that I'm kind of annoyed at is the placement of the volume buttons. They're simply not reachable. Like, I totally get the obsession over saving up some space for battery, but this plus the death of the headphone jack are honestly a tad annoying. But not everything is bad. There are some genius moves in this design. For example, the fact that even if there isn't any bone conducting technology for audio on the earpiece, it does seem like if there is, you can barely, and I mean barely, see the earpiece. And the reason why this is important is because you can't muffle it. It doesn't matter how much you try to cover it, you just can't. For years comparing old Galaxies to new ones and being... So content consumption is not affected by this. And obviously this dynamic AMOLED display also plays a huge role at it being pleasant. Doesn't matter how brightly lit the scenario is, this phone has one of the brightest and most vibrant displays in the market by far. And I will have to admit, I'm using it at 1080p plus, and I'm fine with the pixel density as is. And then there are software elements like Secure Folder, which continues to be one of my favorites for separating my work accounts with my personal accounts, and App Pairs, which is also something that I love to easily deploy from the Edge menus. I know that a ton of you prefer stock Android, but there are some added values in owning a Galaxy, and the only way to get them is through One UI. And notice that I haven't even begun talking about the reason why this phone is unique, which is the S Pen. I have to admit, I am one of those people that actually does use a stylus. I love the precision, I love how practical it is for me, and the S Pen has always been one of my favorites. I haven't really tested the differences on this one enough. I will tell you this much though, those air gestures, yeah, I probably used them for about 30 minutes and then I was like, whatever. Really, for me what I care about is how much this phone can replace a notepad. And ever since the Galaxy Note 9, thanks to its great battery life, I'm already sold on the concept of using this S Pen more. Obviously, the question is if this phone is going to deliver on that promise. It doesn't tend to be more, and that's where the size of the canvas makes all the sense in the world. Now, my first impressions of the camera are positive. There's really not much different when compared to the Galaxy S10 Plus, and that's actually not a bad thing. Color reproduction is great, saturation and detail is fantastic, and just the option to have the versatility of being able to use a wide-angle lens is fabulous. Low light performance was good, though I do notice that the dedicated night mode performs significantly better than not using it, which is not necessarily a good thing. And then when it comes to selfies, I do like the added field of view that this phone provides, though it's not my favorite. I really wish that Samsung would adopt a selfie wide angle.
Really distracts you from the fact that you're climbing really high, really quickly.
Yeah.
102
Oh, I can totally feel it.
Yeah, it hurts my ears. Hey, the Mauritania.
Oh, right there. Oh no.
To conclude, what can I say? My overall first impressions are rather positive, though if you're coming from a Galaxy S10 Plus or a Galaxy Note 9, the honeymoon phase is actually not much different. It's too early for us to give you a final verdict on how good this phone is, but the proposition is even more difficult today. As of now, the Galaxy Note 10 Plus retails for more money than any of its predecessors, and for more than most of its competitors. Expect our full review very soon in addition to comparison videos in order to learn if this phone is really worth your money. Let us know in the comments down below what would you like those comparisons to be. We ran a poll on our community tab to see which one would be next. And yes, that includes the Galaxy Note 10, which we also have in the labs. While you're at it, make sure you follow us on social media as our extended coverage happens on Instagram, and subscribe to our channels English and Spanish for more videos like this one. Also follow me on my personal handles to see what I do with these phones as I test them. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I'm Jaime Rivera. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.